Hello everyone. It's James again. And today's video might be a bit of a long one. So bear with me. But I think you will find it to be an important video for you to watch, understand, and share out there if you can. With that said, there will be different subtopics discussed that will be addressed later in detail. So I may repeat myself now and in the future. But it's important these smaller and larger issues are discussed if a change is to happen. Oh James, nothing is going to change. Why bother? Well, that's the main concern, or thing I want to talk about. You see Erin Pizzey. And if you don't know who Erin Pizzey is, please look her up. She was the first one to start a women's battered shelter, and was a part of a feminist group some time ago. And while she was going through all of this, she found that both men and women both needed help due to being battered and abused. And when she tried to help out both genders, and also teach real skills to couples so they didn't have to be separated, her life was threatened. And her work was taken over, while she had to live in hiding away from her home country for over a decade. Now, why is her story so important? Well, if you watch any of her video interviews, you will hear her talk about getting involved in her early days with this group of women, doing what she thought was the right thing. But what she noticed was these women were a small group of women that were completely dysfunctional, that hadn't done the self-work to fix whatever problems they had in childhood, such as they had a bad father, or maybe they didn't have a father in their life altogether, and as a result had poor interactions with males thereafter. And instead of doing the self-work, they were able to get the elite's backing to demonize all men, and have laws and social norms changed right in front of our eyes. Now think about that for a moment. This is a group of a handful of women that were able to get special backing, to where they were able to change how billions of men and women interact and live their lives. And when it was first going on, there were lots of people that thought it was no big deal, that no one would take them seriously. But with the backing they had, they started to gain a foothold in news, media, and Hollywood, where they were able to spread their message. And part of that message was shaming language towards women that didn't want to live the way their friends and the new media wanted them to live. And trust me people, there is a point to what I'm going to say. But there were lots of women that were shamed out of their homes and into the workforce because their friends were doing what Hollywood said they should do. And they were now forcing it on them. And because they wanted to fit in, they went out and got a job they hated. And as a result they were paying taxes when they weren't paying taxes before, because they weren't working before being shamed out of their home. Now here's the thing. If it was about getting the women that wanted to be out of the home a more fair deal, most people would have been on board with it. And the truth was and is, most people were on board with it, because they thought that's what it was about. Now before I move on, tag that statement I just said in your mind, as I will get back to that. Most people thought that's what it was about fair treatment for those women that wanted to work. But why didn't it stop there? Why did Hollywood, media, and the news basically shame women for wanting to stay home and take care of their families? Because those that have evil or negative agendas rarely if ever come forth telling you that. They tell you what good thing they want to do to get their foot in the door. And then once there they go for a big more and a bit more and a bit more. And before you know it they have taken over all aspects of life with their warped way of living, and has imposed that warped way of living onto others. Now remember, this is a small group. A small group. A handful of people spreading this information and way of life to billions. Because that thing I wanted you to tag in your mind is real. They have an agenda like I just said. And they get that agenda pushed through like a Trojan horse. And there have been several people that were once in these types of groups that have come out and said they know what the agenda is. They just aren't truthful to people about it. And they believe that if they can sneak a little bit in at a time, Eventually they will end up with their end goal. Now take a look at this group. This toxic group that threatened Erin Pizzey's life. A group people ignored. And look at this world today. Erin Pizzey said one time when they were picketing her. And they had all kinds of horrible signs against men and against her. All the while they were hurling violent insults. And she asked the police, why don't you do something about them? And the police said they were scared of these women. Well, fast forward to today. And this is really a good part of what this video is about. Over the past week, the University of Texas is trying to have masculinity deemed a mental illness. And they are offering help to men that want to deal with this problem they have called masculinity. Now, I want you to listen to me really carefully. You may not agree with everything a MGTOW says. Or a men's rights activist says. And yes, they are different. And there are even differences within those groups. Heck, there are Christian MGTOWs. And then you have people that float in between and are just their own person. But you might not agree with everything these people say. You might not agree with everything I say. And some in these groups. Not all, but some MGTOWs think it's a waste of time to fight for a change. Well, though I respect your opinion to feel that way. But what history shows, if we do nothing, the world will change for the worse. And in this case I believe these people, or so-called people, are pushing for communism. And then being MGTOW won't matter. They will come for you and be able to do whatever they want to do with you because you are their property. Or remember some MGTOWs talking about a future man tax. Well, what do you think will happen if people think, wow, these people at this university are off their rocker? Don't pay attention to them. They are nuts. What do you think will happen? They will get more of a foothold. And the more they repeat these lies, the more society will buy into them. You see, currently right now we live around people that are scared to stand up. You hear people talking about certain things in the open, with seemingly everyone agreeing. And those that don't agree won't dare stand up, because they are afraid of losing their social currency. This is exactly why so many women went out to the workforce even when they didn't want to. Because they didn't want to lose their social currency with their friends. This is much like when someone is getting on you for believing in the Most High God. And they will try to browbeat you, shame you, and mock you for having beliefs. And many of people have given up their faith because they simply wanted to fit in. Or even better, you might believe in the Most High God, and understand it has nothing to do with going to church. Or at least that's what I get from reading His Word. But you might find yourself surrounded by a group of church folks trying to shame you into going to their church and taking part of their pagan holidays. And some people fall for it, because they don't want to lose their social currency. Now here is where I'm going to veer around to topics that tie in with what I'm saying. Look at the state of relationships. Ladies, I want to tell you something. As I've said before, we all know both men and women can have this problem of narcissistic personality disorder. But the difference is men that have it have to be more slick than women that have it. Because the women that were back in Erin Pizzey's day made a way for our society to accept, promote, and reward women that have narcissistic personality disorder, and shame the women that don't. To the point good women just move along quietly in their life because they want nothing to do with the mess that's going on in this world. Nor do they want the backlash for speaking out. But what has all of this led to? Here's an example of something I'm going to mention in the future in more detail. But let's say you're a man, and you're dating a woman, and some man at her work wants to have dinner or lunch with her. And you as the man tell her, heck no. It's time for you to come up with an excuse and get away from this man. Or you may say, I'm okay with you hanging out with your girlfriends, grabbing coffee, or meeting up for dinner and these kinds of things. But I'm not okay with you going to a bar, or a nightclub, or a vacation weekend to Vegas. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I can't have a relationship with you if you're going to do this. Well, guess what happens today if a man does this? He's called controlling. He's overbearing. He's a bad guy. He's this. He's that. He's insecure in his manhood. You name it. There are women. And you guessed it, men that will throw these terms around on men that are just trying to protect their home. And as a side note, I tell women, you can do what you want. I just won't be there if you choose to do these things I deem unacceptable. I'm not controlling you. I'm controlling me. But society deems this as somehow bad. But yet we have a society that is full of cheating and infidelity. And let me tell you what. And this is another topic. Ladies. The minute you show up in a new department, or in a new company, besides the narcissist women sizing you up so they can set you up to not only fail at work, but in your personal relationships, there are men that are checking you out as well. And they do not care one bit that you have a boyfriend or that you are married if you have one of these state-sanctioned marriage licenses. They don't care. And furthermore, even if you think you have it all together and would never cheat on your man, trust me, these men will throw every charm your way, and every slick word and manipulation your way, in order to manipulate you away from a good man that loves you, just so they can have some cheap entertainment with you. And this is everywhere. Literally everywhere. No matter what company I've worked for, no matter big or small, the minute a new woman shows up, women are trying to set her up, and men are trying to hook up with her. And every time when they say, wow, she's hot, blah 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 blah, I might say, true, but I heard she has a boyfriend. And their reply always is, so what? I don't care. They literally say so what? And not all of these men that say this are narcissists. Some are. But some were good guys that had the very thing they are now doing to others done to them. So they don't care. And they are going the way of the narcissist. Though they aren't one completely. As women have the same ability. Because it's common when you're abused or harmed in this way to take on the characteristics of your abuser if you're not careful. And the longer you keep it up, the harder it is to change. But I have seen people change from this stuff. Both men and women. But I'm sorry to say, there are men that are at your job that don't care you're married. And don't care you have a boyfriend for the last 5 or 6 years that loves you and built his life around you. They don't care. And there are a ton of women on YouTube crying saying how they feel so bad they threw away the love of their life for a fling at the club. Or a fling at work. Or because a man didn't make enough money. Or whatever. Which is another side topic. Because with all of these changes, because of this small group of women with the power and money of the elite men, the average man can't keep up. I recently watched a documentary on China, and how the ratio to men and women put women in a position of being picky. Because there are several men to pick from. Because there are too many men to compete with the small amount of women. So the women can pick all day. And when some were interviewed, they snickered and laughed. And said they can afford to be picky. And when talking to the men, they were running themselves in the dirt, so to speak, to get enough education and make enough money to have one of these picky women want them. And even though these men might do all of these things, they still might not meet a woman that will want to be with them. Well, though some of you women on my channel are good-natured women that don't look at a man's wallet, sadly that's not the norm. And because many of these women make good money, they won't settle for a man that makes less than her. So if she makes $85,000, the man must make $100,000. And as I've mentioned before, I no longer think this has anything to do with the old version of hypergamy, where the woman is looking for the man with the most resources. I believe it's because many, not all, But many of the women in this world know how this game is played and know a divorce is likely before they even get married, and they want to make sure they are the winner. And the reason why she feels this way is sadly, and I do mean sadly, because of all of this mess these women in Erin Pizzey's day pushed on our society has damaged women. Because by the time these women have gotten married, they have done some real intense stuff, let's just say. In maybe a wild trip to a resort bar town in Mexico, or in Las Vegas, or on a girls only trip to Europe. And what happens to women when they go through these things? They lose care and specialness for a man. And yes, this does happen to men too. But even more so with women. Because when women do these kinds of things, it takes away any nature they have to nurture and bond with a man. And it totally screws them up mentally. So by the time she's walking down the aisle, she knows how damaged she is. And that she has no intention on quitting her broken behavior. And because of that, a divorce is going to be the end result. So it's better to be set up as the winner rather than the loser. So that's why you have women that work at a fast food restaurant that are now picky and will only date a man that drives an expensive car and has a certain amount of money. That's where you hear men, both men's right activists and MGTOWs, talk about most women are out there chasing the top 10% of men. And again, these can be women working at a fast food place all the way to the top of the corporate ladder. And all of this leaves an empty hole. And how does this tie into what I was talking about in the beginning? Well, I will say it again. And sum it up in one word. And that's communism. This is what the elites want. And they are using these small groups to influence the masses to get this end result. Unless people start to give a darn about what is happening and fight this intellectually and spiritually. No matter if you write a blog or do videos like I do, or just how you live your life as a proper example. We have to do something. Because though I respect those MGTOWs that say there's nothing you can do, and I completely understand why they are saying what they are saying. The problem with that is, doing nothing will get us all communism, and they will eventually make MGTOW illegal. And there will be all kinds of problems. Going your own way won't get you out of. Because what these people on the campus of the University of Texas are doing is the exact same thing that all small groups did. Bank on the fact people will just ignore it and hope it will go away. Until it grows and grows and grows. And then one day we will turn around and they will for real have masculinity in the DSM as a mental illness. Think about it. They got one thing removed. And now they are working hard to get something put in its place. And that's what they do. They use time as their agent to get what they want. They use our passiveness and acceptance to things that are wrong. So what do? It starts with little things, such as talking about unfair marriage laws, and asking the questions, why is the state even involved to begin with in such a relationship? This also means example setting, such as women making videos and writing blogs and what good things are to do to have a happy relationship. Things that are completely different from the toxic narrative we are given. Also women coming out saying, hey, it's good to want a responsible man, but you can't expect men to have as much as you when competition amongst us all is so stiff. And also talking about men and women need to stop competing. You must rewrite the narrative. And again, some will say, James, it's too late. And my answer to you is one word. Communism. Communism. Do you want to live under communism? Well, if you don't, you might want to rethink about doing nothing. Because these people aren't doing all the things they are doing for their health. They are doing everything they can to make us weak. They are sapping our strength. So when they feel the time is right, and people have given up on themselves and are looking to the state and government to protect everyone, communism is what they will try to roll out. And good luck on trying to live free and doing things your way. Because they will come for everyone. Especially those that don't live under the system and its social norms. And ladies, when you hear us men and some women talk about simps, simps are the thing that makes this thing go round and round. Because they are basically men that have accepted their lesser role in life in order to have the company of a woman. These are the men that say happy wife happy life. These are the men that are okay with their wives going out to nightclubs and hanging out with male co-workers. All the while they stay at home and watch the children and clean the house. Children that he's paying for that might not be his. And these types hate real masculine men. Because when masculine men were on top, so to speak, it made it harder. Not impossible, but more hard for these types of men to meet the women they found appealing. Oh, they could meet a woman all right. But now this simp man may be able to date and marry a woman he might not have been able to in the past. Simply because he's willing to take whatever abuse comes his way. And now all of these women want nothing to do with the strong man, because the strong man will say no to things that are wrong and against having a healthy family. And no is the wrong answer for such a woman. So what happens? The simp takes over. And if we have more women out there saying this is complete and utter garbage and changing the narrative, there might be a chance. Because remember, these simps don't care if they live under communism. They just want the company of a woman. And these small groups that manipulate the masses, that's what they want. Communism. They want to lure women into things that will completely break their spirit and make them unfit to be a mother and unfit to be in any man's life. And before you know it, society will break down like we are seeing it now. Where evil is good and good is evil. And then while everyone is sidetracked by football, these ruling elite can step up and impose whatever dictatorship on us they want. Unless you stand up. Unless you stand up. That includes big YouTubers. Stand up. Do you want to laugh today about some group talking about masculinity as a mental illness? And wake up 10 years later and it's finally deemed one? Ladies and gentlemen, this is what has happened all throughout history. A small group took a little idea and spread until it took over everyone. Look at street gangs. Most gangs usually started with a couple of people. Then before you know it, weapons and pharmaceuticals magically find their way into their hands. And now that gang becomes a problem for the world. I'm telling everyone out there that can hear my cartoon voice. If you want to remain free. If you want to remain free. You have to speak up now. You have to. Don't let history repeat itself so the crazies can write the rules and narrative on how we are supposed to live our lives. Because when the majority stand up to the bullying minority, the bully usually tucks its tail and runs. Please remember that. Well, that's all I have for now. I do hope everyone had a blessed day. And until next time. Bye for now. And be good to yourself.